This is an ABC News special report. The New Hampshire primary. Now reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
The polls have just closed in New Hampshire, the nation's first primary, and we have two winners. For the Republicans, ABC News projects that Donald Trump will win. That is based on the exit polls and some votes already counted, and it's looking like a decisive victory. A decisive win, too, for Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side. The Vermont senator scoring big over former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who defeated Barack Obama in New Hampshire 8 years ago. The rest of the Republican field all bunched up behind Trump. Iowa winner Ted Cruz, Ohio Governor John Kasich, Jeb Bush, and Florida Senator Marco Rubio all fighting to place. Chris Christie, Carly Fiorina, and Ben Carson further back. Those three may find it hard to go forward. David Wright is with the Sanders Party in Concord. And David, this self-described Democratic Socialist often found himself a party of one in the Senate, now a winner in New Hampshire.
That's right, George. He's very much not a party of one here in New Hampshire. Here he's a candidate of huge crowds, a 74-year-old candidate appealing especially well to younger voters. You can hear their enthusiasm. They propelled him to victory here.
He did so well with independents as well. Cecilia Vega with the Clinton campaign in Hooksett. And Cecilia, they were braced for a loss in the Clinton camp, but not this bad. The pressure really on now in Nevada and South Carolina later this month.
That's exactly right, George. The Clinton camp was hoping to avoid an embarrassment here in New Hampshire. Remains to be seen whether that's the case when we get these numbers, but it's looking like it probably will not be the case tonight. We just received a memo from Clinton's campaign manager. They say they are now shifting the focus, as you said, to the early states, the other early states, South Carolina and Nevada. They are hoping that that's where her support among Latinos and African-American voters will kick in and carry her to victory. The spin tonight coming from out of Clinton camp is that they believe this race will be won in March, not in February. George, you can see this podium here behind me. We are waiting for Hillary Clinton to take this stage.
It could even go beyond March. Okay, Cecilia, thanks very much. Matt Dowd is here with me right now, our political analyst. And boy, Trump and Sanders have been ahead in New Hampshire for so long. It's hard to remember what a political earthquake this is right now.
I don't think you can underestimate the wow factor that exists in this today. And that was only 6 months ago that most insiders of both parties said neither one of these folks would ever win a primary. And now they've won the first in the nation primary. You mentioned an earthquake. This is a 7.0 on the Richter scale with major foundational of the establishment in the course of this. And only the aftershocks are going to be felt going forward. And one thing is for sure, the crowds going forward for those two men are only going to grow bigger.
They both have channeled a lot of anger. That's exactly right, Matt. I want to go to David Muir now, back in New Hampshire. Dave, you've been going through the exit polls, and, you know, Trump is about as politically incorrect as you can get, and those stark positions really struck a chord.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, George. And this is really telling. Nearly half of Republican voters here in New Hampshire wanted outsider status. And look at this. On that issue of banning non-American Muslims from coming into the U.S., 66% of Republican voters here in New Hampshire support that ban. And of them, 42% voted for Donald Trump today in the New Hampshire primary.
He got so heavily criticized, but it won him votes there. And on the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton's perceived strengths, experience, and electability, but it doesn't seem to have mattered much to the New Hampshire voters.
No, that's absolutely right, George. And look at this. We've got this screen up here. The characteristics that a third of Democratic voters here in New Hampshire were actually looking for were an honest and trustworthy candidate. Look at the breakdown there. 92% of those voters went to Bernie Sanders. 6% went to Secretary Clinton. Experience did not help her. A bruising night for Team Clinton.
Boy, that is a flashing red light for Secretary Clinton. Okay, David Muir, thanks very much. The next big contest, the South Carolina GOP primary next Tuesday. I want to go to John Carl for more on that. And John, when you look at the results here, what we have so far, this field's not going to be winnowed that much.
You've got 4 or 5 candidates scrambling to get second place here, all dividing the anti-Trump vote and all seeing a reason to continue their campaigns into South Carolina. And George, that is good news for Donald Trump. It means that anti-Trump vote will remain divided.
It sure is. Okay, John Carl, thanks very much. That is all for us right now. Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, the big winners in New Hampshire. Our coverage continues on abcnews.com. More on Nightline, too. And I'll see you tomorrow on GMA.
This has been a special report from ABC News.